Hi, I'm David Gregg, and I'm coming to you from the woods with another monthly meeting of the Rhode Island Woodland Partnership. This month's meeting features a presentation by Syndey Usatine, a senior business development analyst with the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. And Syndey's going to be talking to us about the water quality protection charge. Now, I can hear you asking, what is a Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank? And what is a water quality protection charge, and what do either of them have to do with forests? The Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank works with state agencies to finance major utility construction projects around the state. You can learn more about the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank at RIIB.org, and I'll put the link to that in the description down below. The water quality protection charge was instituted by the General Assembly. It's a little less than 3 cents per 100 gallons of water delivered, and a little less than 40% of that charge is available to water suppliers to protect and improve the quality of water available to them for production and distribution. Think watershed protection or reservoirs or well fields. Now, there's quite a bit of money left available in the water quality protection charge, and Syndney has come to the Rhode Island Woodland Partnership to try to identify projects such as forest conservation that might be eligible to use some of that money before it disappears. So you can go directly to Syndney's presentation. I'll put the timestamp down below, and I hope you find it interesting. And if you have any really great ideas for water quality protection projects, I'm sure that you can get in touch with Syndney or somebody from the Rhode Island Woodland Partnership. See you out there.
Welcome to the September 2021 Rhode Island Woodland Partnership meeting. Glad to reconvene on Zoom after a couple of in-person walks over the summer with the Borough Land Trust in July, and then at Nunnaconquet Hill Park with the Nunnaconquet Hill Conservancy in August. And we're fortunate to have Syndey Usatine of the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank here today to talk about their clean water charge. And just before that, we'll be getting an update from TJ Boudreau about the implementation of the Forest Conservation Act. But just as we typically do, I wanted to go around and give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. My name's Christopher Riley. Work with the University of Rhode Island in my practice, Sweet Birch Consulting, and I'm the co-coordinator of the Rhode Island Woodland Partnership along with Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate Sales. I'm the other co-coordinator of the Rhode Island Woodland Partnership, and I'm the director of the Rhode Island Land Trust Council.
I'll just call people and go around.
Yeah, my name is Syndey Usatine. I'm a business development analyst at the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, and I'll be talking with you today about the water quality protection charge.
Great. Fern. Oh, Fern doesn't have the microphone. She's the stewardship forester with Rhode Island DEM. All right. How about you, Joe?
Joe Jamraz. I am a forest enthusiast who is up on Nunnaconquet Hill City Park, taking care of the trails up there. So
great to have you here. We're going over to David.
I haven't gone over there today, but I will be up there soon.
Okay, so I'm just inviting David, the Natural History Survey, to.
I'm David Gregg. I'm the director of the Rhode Island Natural History Survey.
Thanks. Mark?
Hi, I'm Mark Tremblay. I'm a consulting forester, and I work with the Rhode Island Forest Conservators Organization, RIFCO, which is a nonprofit forest landowners association.
Good to have you here. How about Gina?
Hi, I'm Gina DiMarco. I'm the district manager of Northern Rhode Island Conservation District.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Jen West, Coastal Training Program Coordinator with the Narragansett Bay Research Reserve, and glad to finally be able to make a meeting.
Tough. How about Scott?
I'm Scott Millar. I'm the Director of Community Assistance and Conservation with Grow Smart Rhode Island.
Pat?
Yeah, Patrick Langloy, Conservation Planner with the Southern Rhode Island Conservation District.
Thanks. Priscilla, good to have you here.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Priscilla De La Cruz. I go by she, her, hers. I am new to my role at Audubon as Senior Director of Government Affairs. Previously, I was more in the climate mitigation space, working in clean energy with Green Energy Consumers Alliance, and I am also the current president of the Environment Council of Rhode Island. Good to be here.
Thanks. So glad to have you with us. TJ, why don't we go over to you and you can introduce yourself and you can just go ahead and go on and give your update as well.
Sure. Thanks, Christopher. And the second that I clicked off of mute, my dog started barking. So if that happens, I apologize. But TJ Boudreau, I'm the Deputy Chief for the Division of Forest Environment. For those of you I have not met, I don't know if there's anyone here, but otherwise, thank you, Christopher and Kate. I just want to give a quick update on the Forest Conservation Commission. As you know, it was passed and signed by the governor in August, and we had sent up a list of names. There's 11 people appointed officially on the commission, and we sent a list of names over to Terry Gray, who's the acting director at DEM, and he forwarded the information over to the director's office, to the director's chief of staff, and there was some back and forth there. Nothing really of note other than the governor's chief of staff wanted to touch base with our chief of staff here at DEM to go over the list and then to see if there's anything of concern, not that there would be. So officially nothing has been sent out to anybody that we were thinking of on the commission because the governor's office hasn't vetted anything yet. We just wanted to make sure everything was on the up and up before we officially sent out notices to volunteers who would like to be on the commission. So unfortunately, there's not a big update other than things are moving at the pace that it normally does, which is slow, but everything is positive. So nothing has, there hasn't been any road bumps or anything like that, stopping anything. It's just, I think it's the time of year, people are going on vacation, things like that. So from our end, things are all positive. My hope was to have the first meeting in November. I don't know if that's possible now, seeing how fast things go, but definitely looking to do something before the end of the year to kick off the commission. And other than that, there's no big updates, but if no one has any questions, I can answer anything.
Thanks, TJ. We appreciate the update.
Yeah, no problem. And I know you, Christopher, talked with Ken. I have a conflict, so I'm gonna have to jump off. It doesn't happen frequently, but every once in a while, when there's a holiday, this meeting conflicts with our land acquisition meeting, so I'm going to jump off and join that one. But thanks for letting me say my piece. It's not too much.
Any quick questions for TJ before he goes? All right, seeing none.
Thank you
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
We'll stay tuned. All right, well, we're fortunate to have Syndney back with us. A number of you will recall that she was here for one of our virtual Woodland Partnership meetings in the spring, in which she talked about the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank's program for can be used for watershed land conservation. And I think I'll turn it over to you, and Kate, if you'd like to provide any context, from that meeting and just in bringing you back today, and looking forward to getting into a discussion and brainstorming possible collaborations.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I was presented back in February. It's been half a year since then, so I'd like to give just a brief recap of how the program operates. But then what I'm really excited about is to talk with all of you about potential projects that might be a good fit and benefit from the grant funds. The big punchline is we have funds available, but they need to be spent by the end of the year. So the clock is ticking. And getting those projects identified is going to be a big step. So I'm hoping we can kind of discuss potential ideas, things in the works, that sort of thing. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right, can everybody see this? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go through this kind of quickly just because I did speak about it back in February, but feel free to interrupt me at any time if there's questions or we want to spend a little longer on a particular topic. Let's see. Okay, so I was going to give an overview, talk about some of our needs in terms of developing projects and a pipeline that we see for future grant funds, talk about some case studies and project highlights, and then end on a map that might assist with identifying relevant parcels. So to start with, this program, the Water Quality Protection Charge, was established in 1989 by the state of Rhode Island. It charges just under 3 cents per 100 gallons of water sold. Since 1989, there have been a number of revisions to the program, and most recently it was relaunched in February of 2019 with the Water Resources Board and the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. So those 3 cents are divided into 3 different buckets. First, the water suppliers can keep 6.9% of that charge for themselves to support their administrative costs. Then 57% is sent to the general fund to support the state. And then 36.1% is sent to the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, my organization, where we hold the funds. This is called the penny fund because 36% of just under 3 cents is just about 1 penny per 100 gallons of water sold. The Infrastructure Bank holds these funds for all the water suppliers except for Providence Water. Providence Water manages this process on their own. They're still restricted for the same project types, so they have to spend the money in the same way as all the other water suppliers, but they do it internally instead of going through the Infrastructure Bank and the Water Resources Board. So these funds, about a penny per 100 gallons of water sold, can be spent on a couple different things. So it's the Water Quality Protection Charge. So the main focus is on preserving water quality. And as such, the funds, one category for the funds to be spent on is on land projects, which is, I think, what's going to be most interesting to this group. So they must be tied to a source water protection or water quality benefit. That's critical. So it can't be necessarily any piece of land in the state, but as long as there's a strong tie to source water protection, we can fund that project. This can be a couple different things. So land acquisition, pretty straightforward. The water supplier can purchase the land themselves. There can also be purchasing of rights. So that could be a conservation easement, or the water supplier can purchase the development rights, which would mean that the property can't be developed in another use. The funds can also be spent on maintenance or administration costs for land that's already been preserved. And this can apply to any project where the land was acquired since 2015. So it can be on a reimbursable basis. That's the bulk of the charge. However, up to 45% can be spent on other things. So this is more physical improvements, water quality protection plans, surveys, that sort of thing. But at least 55%, if not more, of the funds that's been allocated per water supplier needs to be used on the land projects. So the funds are available to groundwater suppliers. There's 16 of those in Rhode Island. All retail sales of the water pay into the program. So 31 water companies pay in, and then 16 water suppliers can use those funds. And then, like I mentioned, Providence Water handles this function on their own. So there's quite a bit of funding available. We allocated the money in 2019, and in that tranche of funds, there was 3.6 million available. Water suppliers have until the end of this calendar year to use their funds, but that's going to come up really quick. So far, so through the beginning of September, we've only used 53% of that 3.6 million. So just over half of the funds have been connected to an approved project. So there's quite a bit remaining that needs to be tied to a project. And then half of the suppliers have submitted applications that were ultimately approved. So that other half of the suppliers need to submit an application to use their money. At the end of the year, the funds need to be used. The bank hasn't made any decisions yet on what will happen after that, but we do see more funds being allocated to this program. In 2022, we could see something as high as 8 million. So it really speaks to the need for a strong pipeline of projects. This is a table of the funding that's available. So the columns, the first column is the participating supplier. So this is the 16 suppliers that have funds available to them. We allocated the funding proportionally based on the water that they drew, if it's source water protection, how much water they supplied. So the percentages are in the next column. The column after that is the allotment that they were given in the beginning, so in 2019. And then the last column is the amount that's remaining as of September 1st. So you can see, for example, this one, Quonset, they were given 60,000 back in 2019. They fully used that amount. Alternatively, we have Kent County Water Authority was given 745,000. They haven't used it yet. So we need to get a project that they can use those funds by the end of the year. We've had some really exciting outcomes from this program. I wanted to touch on a couple of those today. So the first is with Pawtucket Water, where they had a Sisters of Mercy project. The water quality protection charge put in a small amount of money that supported a larger project. They preserved 229 acres and assembled a variety of funding sources. The total project cost 1.5 million. And we were able to support that and help them preserve this area in Cumberland. The second project is with Woonsocket Water, where they did a preservation of a property near Crookfall Brook. You can see the property that when they acquired it there were some structures on the property. There was also a lot of trash in the area. They demolished the structure, cleaned everything up, removed the trash. You can see it's a pretty nice open space now, right next to Crookfall Brook. And the water quality protection charge put in $196,500 for that. So we need to identify projects, and I'm hoping that's where the Woodland Partnership can come in. This can really work quite well. I'm hoping that organizations can advance their conservation mission by identifying potential projects that could be preserved. This helps the water suppliers. This is their funds. It helps ensure that a clean source of drinking water for their customers. Also, if the water is kept clean, that means they don't need to spend as much in the long term treating the water. So it has a long-term benefit for them as well. And finally, it benefits the state. It helps the state advance their water quality program goals. In terms of the actual structure of the acquisition, it's pretty flexible. We can do land purchase, we can do conservation easements, development rights. There's all sorts of things of pairing potentially, an area, making it accessible to hikers or some very limited recreation, along with preserving the area for water quality. So I put together, DEM put together a map with input from the Water Resources Board and Infrastructure Bank One of the key things for this program is that there needs to be justification of how the land acquisition will benefit water quality. This is pretty broad, and that justification can take a variety of forms. This map is meant to help make that justification easier. So we've highlighted a few areas of interest in terms of water and hydrology in the state. That's not to say that all of these identified areas will be compatible with the program. That's also not to say that an area that isn't identified in this map doesn't have a water quality benefit. So I don't want this map to limit the discussion, but hopefully it'll sort of steer things in a way that jumpstarts ideas. So this is pretty small, but I have 3 where it's zoomed in. So if this is helpful, I can stop on this. This is the end of the presentation. It also might be helpful for people to look at this table and see the amount of funding that we're talking about. If you have any projects that you know are in the works that this amount would be useful, we should talk about that as well. So I'll stop here.
Syndey, thanks so much for the presentation. Just have a question regarding that table there. I used to work for Providence Water on their Scituate Reservoir watershed lands, as did Mark Tremblay, also in this call. And I believe that the Kent County Water Authority draws its source water from the Scituate Reservoir. So I was wondering how, how that's applied to the watershed, or what land is eligible in that case.
Yeah, it's pretty broad. So the final determination is made by the Water Resources Board, but as long as Kent County can show that the land would support their water quality goals or support water quality, it's eligible. So I would imagine that all of the Scituate Reservoir would be compatible.
They have their own well fields. Kent County does. So they
Okay.
they do draw through the Scituate Reservoir, but they also have, I think they also draw out a big river.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's a greater area than just the Scituate Reservoir watershed.
Yeah. Yes.
It just needs some sort of justification. It could take, it's pretty flexible.
So if you don't mind, I got a couple small questions. So DEM made this map and it's really helpful. It's sort of difficult to figure out where properties fall within this map. So I've spent a lot of time this week going back and forth between my GIS and trying to see if properties fell within these certain bubbles. I'm wondering, and maybe this is just something to flag for later on, if we could make a bundled layer in Paul Jordan's map room, so that if we were investigating what properties fall into these areas, we could just type in the address in the DEM map room with those layers on. And also, what are the triangles?
So definitely very interested in the bundled layer. I think that makes a lot of sense. It might be something that's already at DEM, but I'll check in on that and follow up. What do you mean triangles?
So if you zoom in, there's little orange triangles all over the place on this map. Are those related to this project, or are they something different? There's no indication in the key. You see the little orange triangle?
Oh, I think that's like a background layer piece. I don't know what those are, but let me find out. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Great. And one more quick question. I know you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that some of these funds can be used for lands that are already preserved. for admin or maintenance related to those. And I'm thinking of a whole bunch of volunteer land trusts around Rhode Island that need, funding for trail maintenance and funding for keeping their lands open and ready to go. Do these lands so the water suppliers are the ones who need to apply for these funds? So we just need to work with the land trust to convince them to put in an application?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the application does need to come from the water supplier themselves. It's their money, but if they want to pass that along to another organization to actually do the maintenance, that would be fine. I have a link. So this might be helpful to more specifically see what we're talking about. I'm going to throw this in the chat. This is the application itself. So if you open that up, down on the third page, it talks about the different land projects that are eligible. And there's just a category for maintenance or other for the administrative costs.
Cool.
Syndney, could you talk a little bit about what level of vetting or discussion level a potential project should be at before partners come to the infrastructure bank to engage you in the discussion?
Yeah, I like to be involved from the beginning. I don't really mind if we have a conversation and the project ends up going in a different direction, like that's fine. In terms of submitting an application, it's helpful that the project is a little bit further along where they have clear cost numbers. Again, I think getting involved earlier rather than later is better because sometimes there's some specific language in the deeds that the Water Resources Board needs to ensure that the property is preserved as the program intended. So we don't want to get too far where, the sale has already been made and there's no chance to change it. Yeah, and there's no downside to submitting an application that doesn't require them to do anything necessary. I think the earlier we can have sort of informal conversations, the better.
The water utility should be involved with the conversation with the landowner should happen first. That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm struck by the parallel between this program and the SNEP water grants that just went out. Are you working with Tom Ardito? Because there were projects that didn't get funded in that last round, or that came as letters of intent but never submitted a full proposal. And I just wonder whether there's stuff in there. Those were just announced last week. Maybe Tom could help identify, because those are water quality focused, identify projects in there that didn't get funded or didn't get full funding.
That's an excellent idea. I'll reach out to him. Is he at DEM?
He's not. He's with Restoring America's Estuaries, but he's the SNEP program, the SNEP manager guy. So he's the person to contact on all that.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's really helpful.
So also, Gina, I know that you're here. I don't know if you're actually here. I just wanted to jump in on when we had this discussion in February. I think I brought up discussions that we were having at the Northern District. There's sort of this catch-22 where often water suppliers are really interested in ensuring delivery and don't really think about the back-end conservation piece. And we're missing an education and outreach to water suppliers. Gina, I don't know if you want to jump in. There's been a lot of discussions and thoughts.
Yeah, we have done some outreach. Molly Allard isn't here right now, but she's actually the one that's made contacts with different suppliers, particularly Pawtucket and Cumberland, I believe, and hopes that that's right, she did contact Pawtucket and they said that they had used up all of their funds. But just trying to interest them in, it's sort of outside the box for the rest of the group, but Providence Water uses the funds all of the time to support outreach and education and water supply protection through that avenue. And so trying to bring an awareness to the suppliers that that is also a acceptable use of funds. And so we are trying to make some connections with the suppliers that are in Providence County.
The other thing that I haven't quite figured out how to make the connection yet, but the Conservation Stewardship Collaborative is an advisory group of executive directors. The Natural History Survey is on it, and it recommends to the Rhode Island Foundation how to allocate funds from an endowment at the Rhode Island Foundation to overcome bottlenecks in conservation stewardship, in stewarding lands that are already in conservation. And so we're always looking for systemic, obstacles that are standing in the way of better stewardship of conservation land. And I think Kate put her finger right on the biggest need, which really is stewarding lands that are already in conservation. I mean, adding more land is always good, of course, and that's been prioritized because we have a window to acquire land, but stewardship is really the long-term issue. And maybe there's again, ideas that bubble up at the CSC discussion that could feed into this. And we haven't got the schedule yet for this fall's CSC meetings, but they're going to happen over the next couple of months. So I'll have to keep this in mind.
Yeah,
That's a great point. And I think there might be some reluctance on the water supplier side to acquire the land directly themselves because they don't want to be on the hook for maintenance in the long term.
Yeah.
So we've seen some success with the development easements and things like that, where someone else would be maintaining the land, but the water supplier could add funding to prevent development.
so this sort of goes along with the question in the chat from Amanda. She said that her internet is sort of unstable, but is there a definition or guidance on what constitutes eligible maintenance and administration for those projects, or is it pretty just like wide open?
I think it's pretty wide open.
Okay.
The right person to speak to that is Kathy Crawley at the Water Resources Board. I can connect everyone with her if that would be helpful, and she might have some additional elaboration, but as far as I'm aware, it's pretty wide open.
The one that the CSC's been working on a lot is monitoring of boundary monitoring and easement monitoring, because it's really hard for these land trusts that have 100, 150 little parcels scattered all over Hellingen to make sure that they're not being encroached on or there's not tree removal. And a lot of those would have dumping. A lot of those would have direct water implications. The other one,
again, all of those are well, not all of them, but a large majority are all volunteer. So to have a program that's consistent, that's maintained is the bottleneck in that case.
Yeah, even ones with paid staff, the paid staff's role is largely to recruit and organize volunteers, because it's really not something that any land trust is in a position to pay someone to do. Yeah. The other one I was thinking about was that's really water quality, directly water quality related, are stream bank and other erosion issues. The survey's been involved in a lot of those because people come looking for native plantings to do stabilization, stream bank stabilizations, and to restore, open ground. I have to think more about how that relates to the water supply directly as opposed to general surface waters. But
yeah, there could be a tie there.
Yeah, big issue.
Kate, what do you think about, do you want to keep the recording going or turn it off?
So it looks like Jen has a question, and then once we once we're good to go, We were thinking that if we're going to be talking about specific properties with individual landowner information, that we stop recording, just to make sure that this stays in our group and doesn't need to be part of the recording. So speak now if you have any questions or concerns about that. We'll pick up recording for our partner updates at the very end. Sound good?
I'm
Jen,
sorry,
do
Jen.
you have a question? It looks like Scott's got a question too, so we're still cranking along.
Good, good.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering if you could help me better understand why there's why there's all this leftover money. Like, did they not apply? What is the application? I don't understand.
Yeah, the application is very simple. It's what I linked in the chat earlier. It's a couple pages. In terms of barriers, that's something that I've been struggling with as well. I think identifying land projects can be challenging. Water suppliers have a million hats. They're doing a lot of different things, and identifying new parcels of land to acquire is not necessarily what's top of mind. Depending on the water supplier, the amounts can be sort of small. So I've heard from a few water suppliers, if they're in a particular area where property values are really high, there's really nothing in their area that they can acquire within the amount of money that they have available to them. So we have seen a lot more success in the 45% of the capital improvements. Where we're really struggling is the land portion. And we'd like to see 100% of the funds go to land, but it's just tough to get those projects identified.
Might I ask, because yeah, I'm not used to funding working that way. Like I used to, you have to know exactly what you're doing and how much it's going to cost for somebody to fund you. So it's really interesting that it's just allocated, and then now you have 3 months to scramble to try to get stuff. So, and I'm not criticizing.
To be fair to them,
thinking,
they
like,
had since 2019. So.
Oh, so this is since 2019. Okay, I'm just trying to better understand this. I'm wondering if a requirement of the funding opportunity or applying for that allocation is that they need to work with their local land trust or someone to do this, if that's the missing piece, which is like it is. I'm just surprised to hear they're allocated all the money without having any identified projects.
Well,
So,
they're allocated proportionally because it's a fee that's tacked on to the sales. So in some sense, it's money that's their money, but they need to spend it on particular project types. There's a lot of different things we can do at the end of the year if the funds don't get spent. There's a high likelihood that the funds for water suppliers that haven't used it is going to get pulled, because if they haven't used it in 2 years, their agreement is that it's going to get spent by the end of the year. So it's not guaranteed to be available to them if they don't.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Scott, you've got a question there.
I do. I was just curious, and one of the hats that I wear is I'm on the Exeter Planning Board. I also work with the Exeter Land Trust. Just to be clear, since Exeter doesn't have a public water supplier in the community, nor is any part of Exeter part of a public water supplier out of the community, would they be ineligible for the use of any of these funds?
Yes, so the list of water suppliers is, let's see. Let me go back to this. So these are the participating suppliers. There's 16 of them. That's the full list. There could be land that's in Exeter that would be a good fit for preservation and could fall under one of these. So the land doesn't need to be in the area of a particular water supplier. it doesn't even necessarily need to be in the state. Sometimes there's based on the watershed, you know, there's some areas in Massachusetts that could be a good fit for preservation. So the project location isn't restricted, but these are the suppliers that have the grant funds that need to make the application and need to take ownership of the project.
Okay. For example, the Queen River Aquifer supplies water to the old Ladd Center that's now owned by Quonset.
There you
So
go.
it could be possible, for example, if the town were to work with Quonset, it might be possible to work on a land acquisition that could protect that aquifer. Would that be a fair assumption?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, Quonset's already spent their funds, but there will be more funds forthcoming next year.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have one more quick question. So I know we have half of the $3.6 million left. We're looking for projects to get the money spent by the end of December. I know that there was some concern that this money might go back to the general fund. We're not sure if it's going to get rolled over. We don't really know what's going to happen. What if we start identifying projects and we start getting somewhere? Because oftentimes easements are not quick and easy things that just happen like magic. They take time and effort. How do we make sure that if we are starting to go down the road on a project, like that we don't get people excited and then the money goes away? I know that there's more money coming, but.
Yeah, I would say get the bank involved early, depending on how fast the project is moving and how solid it feels. It's likely that we could, you know, make some commitments to not remove the funds for a certain amount of time. I would guess because they've had 2 years and it's coming down to the wire, we don't want things to stall out for much longer. So there might be certain milestones, or they might have to use it within 6 months or a year, but we can discuss depending on the specific project. So don't let that hold you back. I would say the more momentum and the more things can move forward, the better that is for the specific supplier and the program as a whole.
So if there's some, you know, projects that you know come to you this fall that get well underway, but the transaction doesn't happen until January, say, could any of them count for these funds, or does it need to be allocated to the time when the funds actually transfer?
I would be very open to discussing that with a specific project. If somebody comes and we start talking about the project, I'm not going to pull the funds and surprise someone halfway down the line. I think, you know, depending on how fast the project is moving, various assurances, I'm pretty confident we can work something out. So likely, yes, I can't guarantee it completely, but that would be my expectation.
Great. So with that, I think I'm going to stop recording and then we can start talking about projects. Sound good?
Yep.
For all you viewers out there, we'll catch you on the flip side.
Before we go to updates, Kate, should we talk about the October Woodland Partnership meeting a bit?
Sure. So I know that we had tossed around the idea of going out to Prudence Island for a field trip. There's an awful lot of conservation land out there through the Prudence Island Conservancy, as well as the Narragansett Bay Estuarine Research Reserve. I talked to John Mitchell this morning via email right before this meeting. He's sorry he couldn't attend, and he has ideas for walks. They also have a 12 to 15 passenger van if we want to go from one side of the island to the other. And I have a few connects to make at the Conservancy. So I just kind of wanted to put it out to the group for our October meeting. There would be some logistical challenges to taking a trip to Prudence Island, but I think it would be very cool and a good way to head into fall. So I just wanted to throw out, I want folks to throw out their ideas. Is this a good idea? Is this something people would attend and would be interested in attending? Things that will be difficult are figuring out the time frame in terms of ferries. There are limited amounts of ferries that go in and out every day. And I know that we probably don't want to spend a full day on Prudence Island. So figuring out time frames, also considering weather and whether or not we have a rain date and what that looks like are going to be needed to take into consideration. So throwing it out there, I think it's a good idea. I've never been to Prudence Island, so I'm excited about it. But jump on in.
My question and or concern, and maybe someone who goes out there more regular than Jen, I don't know who's still on the call, that and I know they've got a tick, and it's a not just regular deer tick, it's Lone Star ticks, it's chiggers, whatever it is. I mean, I got infested with them when I was out there several years ago.
Okay.
And I don't know if, depending on, by mid-October, maybe that's not a concern. David, you got any insight on that?
It's always a concern.
First of all, they're not chiggers. They're larval Lone Star ticks. And yeah, the fall is the high point for larval Lone Star ticks. It's not the best timing.
Although I will say that nobody takes anybody anywhere where you would get that exposure. There is a lot of management and stewardship that happens on our properties, and the sides of the roads are mowed, and we're very careful about where we take people. So that's a huge consideration, but I don't think John or anyone else would take you anywhere where that would be an issue.
So you actually have a good feeling of, what the hot spots are? Because I went out there one afternoon and I walked through someone's woods, and that's where I came home with 100 of them on me. And my body reacts to them like they do chiggers. I get all blisters all over. Susan, my wife was like, "You're not going out to Prudence Island ever again."
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know where we'd end up going. If you step out in the woods and they're there, I would think.
Well, what would be the best time of year to go, David?
When it's frozen, or in the spring or summer.
Okay.
Maybe a spring trip out there might be.
Yeah.
Might make more sense.
I'd love to go. I mean, I'm not sure about the timing, but just generally speaking, I haven't been out there in a while. It'd be fun to explore it a little bit.
I was out in July. This is Amanda for the first time, and they are awful, absolutely awful. And they move faster than your average tick, which is creepy.
Yeah, they do.
But yeah, so I think frozen, or like Jen was saying, they've been out there enough. They're savvy about where to stick to. And if you're literally on the beaten path and not going off of it, you're probably a lot better off. I mean, we were bushwhacking and just covered in them.
So I don't think frozen is going to be the best option for a field trip.
No, there's too many ticks. It's too cold. The sun is too hot. The wind is too high.
No, I think so. So I was out there with Scott Buchanan, the herpetologist, and he would not take people with them unless they sprayed their clothes with permethrin, which is not my thing, but I obeyed because I wasn't in charge. And it was, I mean, there was a reason for it, to be sure. So, I mean, there could be like a buyer beware, and you can either stick to the edge of the road and the mowed areas and not go off the beaten path, or you could have that warning that you might want to be treating your clothes where they're actually dying on you.
Well, we could wear white one-piece Tyvek suits, as Gina suggests.
I like it. I like it better than treating myself with chemicals.
Permethrin is, you're supposed to have it just on your clothes, not on your skin. It's actually a lot better for you than DEET.
Right, but I was out there in July and sweating up a storm, and so it was on, I wasn't wearing 3 layers. I was essentially, I have a hard time believing it wasn't getting on my skin, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but again, you're picking lesser of evils, so.
We could also, shelve this and revisit it and say April, like we're all going to be antsy and ready to get out in the spring as well. So this does not have to be October. We can think about another time.
One thing I do like about the idea of a fall or a spring trip is there are potentially more reliable numbers with, over the summer with people taking vacations, and we ended up, partly perhaps because of the weather, but we had quite a few people for the walk in Burrowville in July, and then a pretty small crew for the one in Newton Hill in August, and for making the effort to get out to Prudence, it would be nice to have a good crew. Well, okay, do you want to sort of circle back with John to just brainstorm a little bit more?
And I still need to, I have a few connections to make with Sean Williams and Bob Marshall, who's on our board, who's involved with the Conservancy. So, now or spring, we'll figure it out.
I wouldn't dismiss a winter trip either, or late winter trip. It's it's not too bad, and there aren't any bugs. So.
That's true.
And we could see some interesting seabirds while we're
Yeah, if you talk to Maureen, our education coordinator, she's a fantastic birder. She might even do a little birding adventure with you all.
We should all be out there now trying to find the brown booby.
Yeah.
That's a rare bird that's been seen on Bay Islands.
On that note,
just logistically, is this something that would likely require a very early departure or a late return, or is it something that can be done during a part of a work day?
it could be done during part of a workday. The trick is the ferries in the morning, at least the summer fall schedule, are at 7:30 or 9:45. And then the return is like 4:15 or 6. The latest, there's also a 3:30 in the afternoon ferry. So maybe it's a later in the afternoon, 3:30 to 6 trip. But every day is different.
Plus you have to get to Bristol and back. I mean, that could take days.
You guys would need to plan one full day if you wanted to do this. There's no way around it. If you're taking the ferry, even if you were to take a late ferry or early ferry, it's a full day. However, I will tell you that we have the coastal classroom, and it is really nice, and it has all the things you need to do your work if you wanted to do your work or have like a Woodland Partnership little powwow project together.
Ooh.
It's really nice. So you could use the day to do little outings, but also you can get work done there. We just send you out into the woods to fend for yourselves.
We are also approaching the end of our strategic plan. So maybe this is an opportunity to revisit that, to have like a work day or a retreat, if you will. And if we have access to the coastal classroom, we can also be doing our own work out there if we need to. I like it.
I think that if the Woodland Partnership helicopter is working, we could shorten the day too. So could you get it out of the shop, Kate?
I didn't. I'm wondering if the Woodland Partnership yacht is also available. Do we have any of those connections?
We'll call the captain and have him bring it around.
Awesome. No problem. We'll get right on it.
I think it's pronounced dinghy, Kate.
Oh, dinghy. It's the name of the dinghy is the yacht. All right, so moving on from prudence, I guess it's we should do partner updates, Christopher. It's probably that time.
Yeah, let's do that and just go around as we do. Why don't we start in the upper left corner of my screen is David. So we start there.
Okay, so two updates or a reminder and an update. Just a reminder that the BioBlitz is coming up October 1st and 2nd, and it's actually at Mercy Woods in Cumberland, which was one of the examples that Syndney gave at the beginning of her talk. So that's newly acquired land by the town of Cumberland, managed by the Land Trust, and they're really hoping that by hosting BioBlitz, they'll get a kind of a first peek at what they've bought. And so encourage anybody who wants to come BioBlitz with us to register. The links are on our website. And the other update is we had, when we were all excited about the end of COVID, we had scheduled a in-person conference in November on the subject of environmental restoration. And we have decided to postpone that until the spring. We polled our e-newsletter readers, and it was 2/3, 1/3 for postponement. So we're going to postpone it until the spring, till things are a little clearer what's going on. It'll give us a little time to work on the program. You know, one of the issues is not just would anybody come to participate to view the conference, but actually getting people to commit to give papers in person at the conference was tough, and we really did not want to go either remote or hybrid. There's not a lot of enthusiasm for that. So anyway, I'm disappointed. I was looking forward to doing a conference in November, but we're going to have Natural History Week. We're going to try to schedule a couple of events during what will be Natural History Week anyway, which is that week that includes the conference date, which was the 18th of November. And so stay tuned for updates on events and stuff related to Natural History Week. That's it.
Thanks, David. A lot going on for people. Glad to be able to get together outside and explore Cumberland for the BioBlitz.
Yeah, BioBlitz, all outdoors, all vaccinated, and so yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
Let's see. All right, let's go over to Mark.
Let's see, RIFCO, between RIFCO and Tree Farm, the Tree Farm program is planning its fall tour to honor Mr. Bougnay down in West Greenwich, who donated their land to the Land Trust there. It's adjacent to the Big River Management Area. So, and RIFCO Tree Farm, is managing it, but we're going to have a sign dedicated in his honor. It's going to be October 16th, a morning walk. But we're also kind of on the fence about our annual dinner, our annual Conservation Awards dinner, with along with the conservation districts. We've got the place reserved. It's November 13th, but we just don't know if we're going to postpone it yet. We'll let you know. I'm going to know soon because I got to do our newsletter and get the notices out. Other than that, the slash wall project at the RIFCO woodlot has been, getting a little attention. We had Jeff Ward come over to remeasure his plots, both in and out of the slash wall, for the deer browse and impacts and the sprouts and whatnot. And Will Walker over at the state has done one over at Nicholas Farm, several acres in size, and he wants to do another one over at Tillinghast. And we're gonna be doing a show and tell over there Monday so that folks from the management committee, Tillinghast Management Committee, can see what a slash wall looks like, and how effective it can be at, it's like an exclusion fence, without the fencing. And hopefully we can get that done because DEM has the money. Nancy is on the call. Nancy's maybe can chime in a little bit about, about that project later on. So that's my update. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. Nancy, perhaps that's a good segue for you if you would like to give an update on behalf of DEM.
Okay, well, based on what Mark was saying, actually it's this Fern's stewardship funding and looking at using that to install a slash fence on an appropriate property. So we were looking at this particular site, but there's a number of shared ownership and a lot of questions to it. So whether we'll be able to get that rolling for this year with the lengthy time period that requires to get contracts out through DEM, we don't know, but we are heading in that direction one way or another. Other things about DEM, nothing off the top of my head, but as far as the Forest Ecosystem and Monitoring Program, because Alana can't be here today, there is the 2021 annual conference, which is not canceled at this point, although it looks like it's going to be possibly some in person and some virtual in December, and they were asking for presentations, posters, and working sessions. So I had already forwarded that to Christopher, but just sharing a little more broadly if people wanted to make any submissions. The other thing to update on FEMC is that as far as we know, the Oak Resiliency Tool that was a sprint project for FEMC is close to being rolled out formally. So we're still waiting on when that can be shared, and hopefully before too long. We are already providing FEMC with some of the data saving efforts. So they're getting some information on that. So those are a couple of things that Fern, oh, sorry, not Fern, Alana is dealing with. But as for other DEM things, I think that's about it.
Thanks, Nancy. Oh, we were referring to the release of the Oak Resiliency Assessment Tool there. Did I have that right?
Yes.
Okay, and that is available for distribution and use now. And I believe that I sent it around to the partnership list earlier.
Okay, because the last I had heard was Pia said it was about ready. They had gotten some feedback from you guys, but that it wasn't ready for broad dissemination. So I'll double check on that and see. I'll get Alana to check on that.
Okay, feel pretty confident about it. But it's a good idea, but we definitely want it to be used and distributed widely. Yeah. Thanks. Priscilla, I know you need to go at 2:30, and definitely want to get offer you the chance to give an update too.
Right, you can never get quick to unmute yourself, and we've had a year and a half on Zoom. Anyhow, sorry for that delay, Christopher. But I found the mute button. So let's see, I am new at the role at Audubon, so I will say I don't have much to report, but two things that we are starting to discuss. One of them involves Kate. Kate and I met with Medker to talk about the Land and Water Summit. And Kate correct me if I'm wrong, since you are leading the charge and organizing us here for the Land and Water Summit. So far, we're planning that we will stick to our in-person date in March, and we will decide in early January whether we need to pivot to an online format. So that's that on the Land and Water Summit. And then the second thing that I think is relevant to this group is the discussion around solar siting. And figuring out what the legislative strategy is going into January. So the Environment Council of Rhode Island convened its policy committee yesterday, and that seems to still be of a priority for the group and certainly for Audubon as well. So I will be in touch with Kate and others that want to be part of a small sort of working group to figure out what the strategy will be going into January. And that's all for now.
Oh, thanks, Priscilla. One of the things we're thinking about as a partnership is just how to focus our energy and attention this year. A lot of last year was devoted to the Forest Conservation Act. Certainly feel good about the results of that, but open to your your input and thoughts there moving forward, and really glad to have you as part of the group.
Great, thank you. I'm happy to be here. A bit of a learning curve, learning about the work that you all have been doing, and I think this is part of the fun for me. So thank you for welcoming me to the space.
Good stuff. Let's go over to Jen.
Yeah, I'll pass. There's lots of stuff going on, but probably not super relevant to this group. So I'll let John update you guys next time.
Okay, and let's we'll move on to Joe then.
Okay, up at New Conkinent Hill, we are starting a forest management program, and I'm really excited about that. We're going to look at the future of the forest up there and see what we can do. That's about it. We're looking at starting up walks again and getting those structured. We haven't started our walks with the COVID and various things, but we might get them started soon. We're looking forward to that. That's about it.
Great. And thanks again for co-leading the the walk with Doug Still in New Conkinent Hill Park last month. It was a really
Very good.
crew,
Yeah,
on that day.
that was great.
All right, Kate, I bet you have a few updates.
What? No. Okay, so thanks, Priscilla, for the update on the Land and Water Summit, March 12th, holding that date. Hoping that we can do it in person, but if we can't, we have some ideas about how to at least have a networking opportunity in the spring and have an easy way to go virtual if need be. A few things were underway with Land Trust Days. We're smack dab in the middle, so there's lots of Land Trust events happening across the state of all different kinds. You can go fly a kite, you can go paddling, there's lots of opportunities. So check out Land Trust Days if you haven't already. And I don't know if I brought this up last meeting, but we have the Rhode Island Walks Challenge, which is happening. We have 30 creatures hanging on Land Trust trails across the state with QR codes. It's a super fun challenge to do with kids. We've had 2 families complete it as part of their summer plans, which is pretty amazing. And it's a great opportunity to get to see all sorts of properties throughout the state. So update on the Rhode Island Forest Health Works project. As we all know, working on partnership agreements and supplemental agreements with NRCS is like the most tedious, impossible process that any of us have ever been through. I'm nearing the end of the partnership agreements. We have all the ducks in a row. That will be done hopefully tomorrow, and then they will finally review it. And I'm sure once they review it, they're going to come back with all sorts of things that we would have no idea we needed to include. So heads up on that. Nancy has been super helpful and like at least being there through the process and trying to help when possible. So our hope is that we can really roll it out in January 2022 and at least have our first partnership agreement to start the process and get everyone on board with what we'll be doing with this project this fall. So public trust, the public trust legislation that Rupert worked on last year passed. So I'm working with all of our municipal land trusts to sort of gear up on the process is they need to go through to declare their land trust lands or the lands in their towns that are meant to be held with conservation intent through the process to do that. Narragansett's most of the way there. Tiverton started. We have examples in Pennsylvania and other states, but nobody's done it yet. So it's kind of a learning curve. I'm interested, and there's been a lot of background discussion about using the federal American Rescue Plan funds for conservation projects. There are plenty of other states that are utilizing those funds for conservation projects, be it trails, be it public parks. So I'm wondering how we can access those in Rhode Island. That came up at ECRI last night. And then also to bring up ECRI, I'm now going to those meetings and the political committee meetings. So all that conversation last year about who is going to be from the Woodland Partnership at those meetings, I can wear both the Land Trust Council and Woodland Partnership hats. I'm happy to do so. And keep you all abreast of what is happening, at least in terms of legislation in that regard. And I think that that's probably it. I'm excited about the potential of using those water quality surcharge funds for match on some of these potential RCPP projects. And that's what I got.
Thanks, Kate.
I have a question for you, Kate, in regards to the work you were doing with Greg Cassidy on the Forest Legacy projects in the Situate Reservoir watershed.
Yep.
Now that he's retired, which we knew was coming, but
Yep.
I didn't realize it happened. But anyway, what's the future of that process? Do you know?
So I talked to Michelle last week about a whole bunch of different stuff, and they are hiring. So they are hiring for Greg's position for both Forest Legacy and for the trails/recreation grant piece, which is huge news, because the assumption was Michelle was going to be stuck working on the back end on all these deals, as well as all the stuff that she does. So I don't know what the time frame is for it, or if the job description has come out yet, but that is something to flag. And I mean, Marina is like, she has all my background information on legacy so that she can start working on it if that needs to happen. I know that the last time we had a legacy committee meeting, we sort of decided that, like, let's get through what we have and not try to parse together a new application. It doesn't make any sense for us to utilize our resources in that way, knowing that we have a backlog and knowing that these projects the projects that are funded may not go forward. Also, I think it's important that we start flagging the next bond issue and thinking about how we're going to need to advocate for the things that we want to see in it. I haven't heard discussions about meetings or anything yet, so I just want to put that on everyone's radar. And that's any other, I'm happy to answer them.
Next bond, is there any word on what might be most attractive to, spin on things? We'll learn more. We'll see.
I'm not hearing anything about anything, which I don't know if that's, I'm new when it comes to advocating for the bond issue. So I don't know if that's normal or not normal, but we need to start having these conversations. So.
Well, just a few updates for me. Just wanted to plug the next public events in the Oak Resiliency Grant. There's a Oak Resiliency Learning Exchange coming up in October. The webinar on Thursday, October 7th from 12 to 1 p.m. It's really going to be a prelude to the field trip the following week, the Quabbin Reservation in central Massachusetts. The trips from 9:30 to 1:30. Of course, it would take some time getting up and back for anyone from Rhode Island, but we're really going to focus on Lamentria dispar, formerly known as the gypsy moth, and management and research related to that on the public drinking supply watershed that it is. And Audrey Barker Pluck in the Harvard Forest is now doing some PhD research on that topic. We'll get down to the edge of the reservoir, see some active management that DCR is going to be doing. I think it'll be a good trip. There are only unlimited room for the webinar, basically, but 30 spots for the field trip. So if you'd like to do that, I would encourage you to sign up soon. Secondly, the climate adaptive forest management grant project that I've been spearheading through URI is going to be starting up in October. This is extending the project that UConn's got going with a site at a state forest in eastern Connecticut and Yukon Forest, to include one at the Coppet Preserve in Richmond, Rhode Island. There'll be the 3 different treatments: resistance, resilience, and transition, along with a control area. And then over the next 3 years, some outreach and education related to that. That's going to be somewhat along the lines of the forestry for the birds model. So we'll keep you all in the loop about that. There will be opportunities to learn more and get involved. And then finally, in my role in at URI, I have taken over management of the Rhode Island Woods website from Bill Buffum, and not related to that transition, but a requirement of URI continuing to provide maintenance for the site is that it's being moved to a new theme or format, as I mentioned in my email the other day. So it's interesting to be a forester getting involved, under the hood of web work, but hopefully a good skill too. But it'd be great to have some more pictures for the site and updating the content, including some more expanded content for the Woodland Partnership. So if you've got pictures, you share them, via whatever file sharing mechanism works best. And if you have, if you'd like to talk about the content or ways you'd like to see the site you change or grow too, we could talk about that. The new theme, should be made public pretty soon. So that's what I got. Okay.
Hey, Christopher, and anyone else who knows, when is the Forestry for the Birds training for foresters? Was that scheduled, or is that?
I have October, or so rather September 28th from 1 to 3. A lot for NRCS staff and foresters. I don't know what NRCS has done to publicize that, but
doesn't sound like anything. Okay. Mark's shaking his head.
All right, Mark would know.
I had not. I thought I asked Paul Dolan about it just the other day, but
okay.
I didn't. I thought he was thinking there would be a field session in the spring kind of time frame.
Well, the grant is done, so and we already got a 1-year extension, so it needs to be done now. I have nothing to do with planning it. I just am curious.
So yeah, Christopher, if you can forward, maybe Chris Modisette did forward something and I didn't see it, or buried in all those emails you get every day, that long list.
Yeah. So maybe that's if there's an advertisement or a date with a description, maybe it's something like the district and a few other people can get out. We just want to make sure it goes to the foresters, at least on the TSP list.
Yeah, no, that's coming right up. So I'll get on that.
Did you say it was the 28th?
That's I have the 28th from 1 to 3 penciled into my calendar. I was at least planning to work with NRCS planners then, and I think the thought was that it would be open to foresters, other professionals too.
Cool.
Great.
Thanks.
So for the next Woodland Partnership meeting, let's keep the Thursday, the 21st on your calendar, and Kate and I will follow up with more information about that.
Cool. Great.
Well, thanks so much to all of you joining and sticking around, and hope to see you soon.
See ya. Bye.
Take care, y'all.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Take care, everybody.